Well, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow is urging Americans to leave Russia immediately while they still can. That alert also says that Russia may refuse to acknowledge U.S. citizenship for dual nationals and warned that they may be drafted into the military. In addition, the embassy is urging U.S. citizens to avoid all political or social protests, noting that the right to peaceful assembly and the right to freedom of expression are not guaranteed in Russia. Well, Russians, meanwhile, are headed towards the border in droves. The mass exodus continues 1 week after President Vladimir Putin's general mobilization announcement triggered panic throughout the country. CNN's Melissa Bell reports from the Georgian-Russian border.
Russian forces making a dash towards the border with Georgia. Their task? To issue summons to the droves of eligible men fleeing the draft, after being instructed to check all men trying to pass through from Russia. It's part of a coordinated effort with the Georgian authorities, who've seen an unprecedented number of arrivals since Russia announced its first mobilization since World War II. With up to 10,000 Russians now entering Georgia each day, according to the country's Ministry of Internal Affairs. Russians now driven by fear.
Those who understand what is happening, those who are aware of what is happening, are well aware that this will not end in a day or a month. There will be a second and a third wave of mobilization, and we are against it.
Already the crossing's been getting harder, with fears it may soon become impossible.
It was very difficult, almost impossible. All of the checkpoints were closed. You must find some way. In some places the locals helped people. They guided us over the mountains.
Those with the means headed to the airport trying to desperately board flights. For others, the flight is harder but no less urgent. Moscow's call to arms has pushed droves of men not just southwards, but also towards the Central Asian country of Kazakhstan, whose president pledged on Tuesday to welcome them. Russians heading also towards Finland, whose borders remains open to them. Meanwhile, Russia showing no sign of slowing down its mobilization efforts, now extending them to occupied territories inside Ukraine. As residents in the occupied city of Donetsk received messages on Tuesday asking them to attend the military commissariat. A move local Ukrainian officials say Russia is justifying through the cessation referenda taking place across Ukraine this week, which, despite being widely dismissed as a sham, have nonetheless triggered fear about what lies ahead, not just for Ukraine, but for Russia itself. Melissa Bell, CNN, on the Georgian-Russian border.
Well, EU and NATO leaders are calling the Nord Stream gas pipeline leaks acts of sabotage. A former US spy chief is telling CNN that Russia is most likely the suspect. The Kremlin calls those allegations absurd. CNN has also learned that the US warned several European allies that in recent months that the pipelines could be attacked. Germany and Denmark say they're looking into the damage. Well, they want to bring in our CNN international diplomatic editor, Nick Robertson, who joins us live from London. Good to see you, Nick. So the Kremlin denies that it attacked these two underwater natural gas pipelines. Denmark and Poland are assessing the damage. What more can you tell us about the blasts? And should they find that this was a deliberate ploy to disrupt this European energy supply, what sort of ramifications could we see?
Well, I think we're already beginning to see the ramifications. It's very clear the European Union chiefs believe that Russia was responsible, that this was sabotage, and that Russia is the most probable actor in this case. It could take several weeks before hard evidence of precisely what happened is revealed, because the Danish say the seas are too choppy to get down and repair the line and to get a close look. So that may take a little bit of time. But the finger is pointing very clearly at Russia already. So we're talking, and the EU is talking, about an 8th round of sanctions. Biting sanctions is how the EU is referring to what they're going to impose on Russia, not just because of Nord Stream pipeline leaks or explosions, but because of everything else that Russia is doing as well. But it feeds into that at the moment. But I think when we listen to John Brennan speaking on CNN's New Day earlier today, former head of the CIA, he made it very clear that this was a relatively easy thing for Russia to do. Shallow water, they have the capability.
Well, I think all the signs point to some type of sabotage. These pipelines are only in about 200 feet or so of water, and Russia does have an undersea capability that would easily lay explosive devices by those pipelines. And I do think it's a signal to Europe that Russia can reach beyond Ukraine's borders. So who knows what he might be planning next? But I think this is clearly an act of sabotage of some sort, and Russia is certainly the most likely suspect.
Yeah, and showing that it can act outside of the Ukrainian battlefront. And that's what the EU has responded to as well today. Ursula von der Leyen, European Commission President, has said that if Russia does attack Europe's energy infrastructure, there will be united and robust response. We know that the language that's being used behind the scenes diplomatically from the United States to Russia and the Kremlin is very blunt and very forthright. I think we can expect the same from the EU.
Yeah, we will continue to follow this closely. Nick Robertson for us in London. Thanks so much.